Hi guys. So this week I picked logic from chapter 12 and intelligence from chapter 13, which I thought went together pretty well. I liked these chapters. They had a lot of good information. I'm glad we're kind of ending on these two chapters and what they have to say in them. So the logic chapter I enjoyed because I feel like it can easily be applied to many circumstances we find today. It has the example of like the card test that says like all plumbers are mortal and all secretaries are mortal. So if we go just on the simplest of logic, then all plumbers are secretaries. Of course, that would make sense if we're basing it only on the information that we have provided to us, like directly right there in those sentences. But of course, we know that's not true. So logic is kind of a tricky thing. Obviously, this one's not that tricky, but you see it a lot today in like the current like political affairs and stuff. If you're left leaning, you're this kind of person, or if you're right leaning, then you're this kind of person, and there's no in between anymore. And you kind of get grouped into these groups that you might rather not be associated with just because you have thoughts about certain things. But the logic of today's political society doesn't allow you to have differing opinions, or at least not generally. You're either one group or the other, and you can't be anything else. And that logic is just, it's not good, and it's laziness, and it's the kind of stuff that is just annoying in my opinion. But that's what I thought of when I was reading that. It also talked about belief bias. So if you've been raised a certain way and this is all you've known your whole life and it's kind of the only thing you have to go off of, then of course anything related to that area you're going to base off of that belief. Like religious people come from a different background than, say, like Eastern Europeans that are generally atheist and have been for quite a while. They've been raised that way. That's what they've known. Religion's been like not even an option for a long time. So of course they're going to come from that background. There's tons of different backgrounds you can come from, but it does alter how you decide on certain things, what you think about certain things, and that's only natural. That completely makes sense. But I think a lot of people, when they're arguing with other people, kind of forget that you're talking to somebody who is not exactly like you. The world is not the same as what you've seen. And their logic for things is going to be different because they've probably gone through life thinking through things in a different way and in different patterns. And people just forget that. They think that whoever they're talking to is exactly themselves, which is definitely not true. Even somebody really raised in similar conditions will think differently than you. That's just how it goes. Let's see. I think that's all I had on the logic chapter or section. And then down to intelligence. I really like this chapter. I thought it outlined the situation pretty good. I haven't taken like an actual IQ test, but I've taken various kinds of, like intelligence tests. Everybody's taken the ACT or SAT, and those are kind of intelligence tests, I guess. Maybe a little bit different, but so something that always bugs me is people think that smart people are smart at everything, and that's fair, especially based off what this chapter had to say about general intelligence. Nobody's going to be a genius at everything, but there is a correlation between being just generally smart, being able to use logic in situations that you're not familiar with that will make you come off as smarter than somebody who's maybe not as resourceful or capable of thinking in that way. So it talked about, let me go find general intelligence. So it says in here, some authors argue that there's no such thing as being intelligent in a general way. I think I tend to disagree. So my experience with this is at my current job, I work with a couple different girls on a team. Maybe this is me just being judgmental, but there are people on that team that I would categorize as more intelligent, and there's a couple other people that I would categorize as less intelligent. And I base this off of how quickly can they learn new skills? Do I trust myself to ask them for situations where we have to come up with like reasons for how to handle a customer situation? And there are just different people on the team that I would rather ask than others, because I know that some of them will look at me with a blank stare and not be any help because they just can't reason through that, or they don't think they can. And there's other people that will spend the time to talk through it with me and bring out different points. Maybe that's not exactly intelligence, but overall though, there is, I think you can just tell after a while with working with somebody if they're more intelligent or not. Maybe that's not super nice of me to say, but I think it's true. And it talked about specialized intelligence, which is not, I don't think it's the opposite of general intelligence, but let's see. So of course people are going to be smarter at certain areas, and if you go to school and spend an exorbitant amount of time learning these things, of course you're going to be smarter at something, at a specialization, than other things. Like, that only makes sense. If you put all your time into, learning math and science, then maybe you're not going to be as good at stuff that isn't that, and I think that only makes sense. But I think the level at which you're able to learn these things and the ease that you're able to learn them with is that general intelligence affecting that specialized intelligence. And that came down to, maybe they are the same thing, I'm not sure, but it talks in this section I'm talking about in the last paragraph about general intelligence, which was Spearman's kind of idea. So there's high levels of G, which is general intelligence, and low levels. And it talks about this. It says that those with more G will have an advantage in virtually every intellectual endeavor, while those with a low level of G will have a more difficult time with that. And I think this is true. I had a cousin in high school that was just obviously not inclined towards school while I was. We were in the same grade. And it's almost rude to say that in this context he had low levels of G while I had high levels of G, general intelligence. But it kind of applies. I did way better at the ACT than he did. School was just way easier for me. I went to college. He did apprenticeship, a vocation. And you know what? He makes way more money than me, and he's further along in life as far as developing a career for himself. But so it doesn't really matter. I don't know. I guess it's just based on what you think is important in life. But that's just what I think of when I think of like general intelligence. Some people have it, some people don't, but it doesn't always really matter. It did talk about though that people with higher intelligence overall do have better jobs and live longer and are less likely to die in car accidents, which is just strange correlations, but I guess if the data shows it. It talked about, let's see, fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. So I would think of this as a way of being able to spontaneously improvise or not, kind of, at least as far as the fluid intelligence, being able to take other similar experiences and apply it to your new experience and be able to make that work. It says that your fluid intelligence kind of gets worse as you age, and I guess that would make sense. Just as you age, lots of things get worse. But your crystallized intelligence, which is what you've learned and carry on throughout your life, gets stronger, of course, as you age. I think that's pretty fair to say. So I liked these chapters. I thought there was a lot of good stuff in them. Yeah, just lots of good stuff. See you guys.